All right, good evening. Welcome to the Village of Lake Bluff Finance Committee meeting of Monday, March 30th, 2026. Clerk, can we call the roll?
Here.
Member Renner. Here. And Chair Reiner.
Here. The first item on our agenda tonight is approval of the meeting minutes from March 9th, our most recent Finance Committee meeting.
Motion to approve?
Do we have it? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Hearing no opposition, that motion passes. Thank you. Now, item number 3 is non-agenda items and visitors. The Finance Committee allocates 15 minutes at this time for those individuals who would like the opportunity to address the committee on any matter not listed on the agenda for the committee. Do we have anyone here to discuss something other than what's on the agenda? Okay. Okay, we'll move on to number 4, the business items. We are going to be going over some budget issues, as a finance committee often does. The first of which is the capital improvement budget. And Bettina, I think at least at the beginning, you'll kick us off here.
Sure. So as part 2 of the budget presentation, we're going to review, showed the capital improvement budget, the actual fund itself, or look at the pay plan and salary analysis, the water fund and the stormwater utility fund.
Okay.
You can keep going. So the capital improvement plan is included in the memo. This chart displays the totals of dollars that we've spent and what's projected and budgeted in the various categories of improvements. This isn't just the capital fund, though. It's spread across all funds that have capital projects. So it's related to MFT, it's related to the general fund, the capital fund, and stormwater. So it's a total cumulative for all funds in those categories. The top line being what we've projected as what we should be spending, and that's $345,000 in sanitary, $500,000 in stormwater, $725,000 in transportation, and $500,000 in water. And then each year what we've spent thus far, what we project in 26, and what we're budgeting for 27 and 28, and what we're looking at forwards. That's included in the 15-year capital summary plan that does change as time goes by, but just to give you a sense of where we're going. So the average of all those years is about 3.4 million. So we're moving towards well above the expected or minimum costs that we've anticipated, right? For each asset category.
Can I ask a question about those, the ideal numbers? How long have those been the ideal numbers?
Jeff, you want to come
And how were they set?
Great question.
2 questions.
Yep.
Those numbers were set based on, as a percentage of the infrastructure we have as a regular repeating program. They're a little low. They were set a few years ago. They haven't been adjusted. Inflation has really taken a bite out of what we can do. But that is kind of the set was for different infrastructure, either I think it was 75 or 75 year, going through the whole village and replacing. Stormwater was not, didn't come close to that, but sanitary and water were set that way. Water I know is too low at this point. Sanitary, so that's probably okay for the foreseeable future, but it is, based on a return period of going through the whole village and replacing the whole infrastructure.
I see. And there's a low year, I guess that's the COVID year that I'm seeing, the 851 grand total. Is that that's fiscal year that included the beginning of COVID. It looks like that's when we held off.
Yeah, and there are times, like you can see, that huge investment of 14+ million in the out years for stormwater. That's when we do the deep tunnel, the big element of that. And then there's other years, and there's other assets, like water's another one that we tend to cluster together and do in bulk and borrow and do a big chunk. It's much more efficient to do in bites, larger bites. So the road is the most highest reoccurring number year after year. But generally speaking, you'll see, kind of lulls and then a big line.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question. So we could be facing inflationary issues this year, particularly in oil and oil-related things like asphalt, plastic piping, those types of things. For the budgets that are set for this year, are those already contracted, or are there some parts of that that have escalation? I mean, when we put in the numbers for budgets that might be this year or multiple years sometime of the same project, there might be escalation costs allowed. So
the street program is already bid, so that's
Okay.
most of our asphalt, and then the Block 1 streetscape has a bunch of asphalt in it too with that resurfacing, so we're a little fortunate there, we got those prices locked in. I think we'll have to say if oil prices triple, if they have some sort of recourse to come back to us for contracted dollars.
I know about a year ago now, when they first started implementing new tariffs, we kind of revamped the way that we wrote those contracts so that these unforeseen price hikes could not affect existing contracts. I would have to look at each specific contract at play here, but generally we've started to integrate that into all of our contracts.
Okay, thank you.
We have couple things coming yet, but I think our biggest unbid project for the year is water tower painting, so I don't think paint is going to be as impacted. That's mostly labor, so hopefully at least for this year we are
Yeah.
relatively safe from a spike in things that we're contracting.
Okay, thank you.
So taking a review of the actual fund balances in the capital fund, this chart just displayed the expenditures, what we're budgeting for 27 and 28, our projected year ends, and where we've landed in the prior years. A lot of reason those prior year expenditures were low because we were actually saving money for a Green Bay Road project, for things that we knew that were coming that we needed, to have. So hence the spike in a couple of those years, and now in 27 is when we're looking at really spending that down. And then afterwards, you see it level off to where we anticipate the fund balance to end up.
So we're moving on from capital. Perhaps,
Talk about Thorn Valley.
yes, perhaps this is the appropriate time to talk about the Thorn Valley concern. So I wanted to understand the plan, how far out we need to plan for either regrading or regrading and paving. How quickly can we respond to concerns that are raised, like those that are being raised by Thorn Valley?
So right now, what we've talked about is pulling funds, not in the current fiscal year, or FY, the first year of the budget. The second year of the budget is where we pull, because it's not MFT money, and the village could pull from that transportation for now and use that money for grading as opposed to asphalt work. Again, that's a road that we're responsible for to maintain, and that would be the time to do it in our planning. I think the question is, we were having internal conversations about, is it better to resurface the road as a long-term maintenance reduction strategy? And right now, those numbers don't tip in that favor yet. And then there's also the policy issue of the village, when those properties were annexed and developed, that the homeowner would pay their pro rata share of any water and sewer extension, because those homes, that 6-unit subdivision, are served by, actually, no, it's 5.
It's 6, but one home has at least
Yeah.
water service from the rear.
But to extend sand, sewer, and water there, and as well as to improve the road to the village standard, it was agreed that they would each home would pay their pro rata share. And so what we were having a very brief conversation about with with one of the residents on that road was to begin having conversations with that neighborhood to say, right now, to regrade the road to where it needs to be from an engineering perspective is about
Well, it's about 70,000 just to fix. We've added gravel every year for
50 years.
So it doesn't drain like it used to. So one of the neighbors here is having drainage problems. So we can reshape some things, I think, for about 70,000 to make the drainage problems, alleviate those. If we were gonna pave the road, we would shave some more off it and set it to a profile that makes sense for paving. That would probably be about $100,000. And then the paving itself is about $50,000.
I see.
For the asphalt.
There's a delta there to go to that next level. And so we can have a conversation with that neighborhood and take the time of the next 6 months or so to say if that's the direction they want to go.
Okay,
Excuse me, what was the figure for paving?
It's about $50,000 once all the grading is done to a
The grading
sub-base.
is on the village, the asphalt will be on us?
It would be two levels. It would be additional grading work to make it road ready, asphalt to receive asphalt, then the asphalt cost itself. So that would be around 80, 85 ballpark.
That we would be responsible for.
Pro rata, yeah, each home would pay their share of that.
You can come up here.
We live at the end of the road. Now, we just regrade it and do the gravel like it is. Is that something we are not responsible for paying for?
Correct.
And that requires you to come every year and get rid of potholes? And are you regrading it down so that the current potholes that come back every 15 minutes will be eliminated?
What we would do is take the pothole areas, dig like a foot out,
Okay.
instead of just piling it in, and hopefully, you dig a foot, you see where you are, see what's down there, and then maybe a little more, but that's kind of the idea. It's spot repair of the potholes, and then, like where your water comes into your front yard, we can probably put a little dent in the road, kind of at the end of the cul-de-sac, and let it, it's not gonna go anywhere, I mean, it's still gonna sit and be wet, but it won't
actually used to
be,
drain between our properties at the end of the road.
down to the golf course, yeah, and that's, in the old plans to do sewer, water, and pave, it also included some storm sewer down there to kind of get it to the, I think, the back corner of your lot. And that wouldn't be a part of just grading the road, but it wouldn't come to your yards. It would kind of just sit in that middle spot where I think there's some trees have grown up, and some sits there now, I believe. But we can better control it away from, you know, where your house is.
Yeah. Okay. So, do you have questions, Todd?
Yeah, well, I guess, personal questions, I've been here only 20 years. But I guess when this came up before, I'm on property that's connected into Bluff, because I guess it's Howard West's personal property. There was some deal with the donation of the land for the golf course, and I don't have all the details.
Howard West was one of the original developers of the
Right,
project.
he developed the whole thing, and under what was his house, so I guess he hooked into Bluff, right? So I already got the water in the city.
Oh,
So
I see.
The question would be, would I pay a pro rata of that, or just the paving?
At this point,
Yeah.
we're only talking about the road resurface.
Oh, I see, okay, so you would go ahead with the road surfacing without putting in.
You want to talk about that, what happened?
Yeah, the last time, there was a lot in the file from 2000 to 2003 or 4 about doing the sewer, water, paving, storm sewer, and ultimately, I think you guys, or not you guys, but whoever lived there then decided that was too expensive. There was some talk about making the road private to pave it, to try to save costs.
Yeah, we tried that. We were gonna bring in, my husband was in excavating, and he was gonna bring in crushed asphalt and just, get the road, do a surface with that. And, so that it would still be porous, but yet not like the gravel road, it would still kind of.
So I think it's,
Seal.
I think the difference here is, I think we're talking about not making the sewer and water go in.
That's right, we're not talking about water.
Allowing
Okay.
just the neighborhood just to pave the street
Yeah.
without the sewer and the water.
Okay. I think, that makes more sense, yeah. And how do you feel about the road being paved?
Be an advantage, I guess, I spend a lot washing my car frequently.
I think we are we the only dirt road in town?
Gravel, it's gravel, it's not dirt. But, mostly gravel, but yes,
Some of the year it's great.
yes. The only,
Some of the year.
yeah, yes, I mean, there's a, technically Northern Avenues in town, which is probably dirt by now, but nobody lives on it, and nobody knows where it is. It's just,
Between Maple and Moffett, it's certainly dirt.
he's right,
And-
but yeah, the only unimproved street.
I think that's, so we have to come up with some figures, but in the near term this year, what can we look at for this year?
I think this year, the cleanup that's I don't know, I haven't talked to Jake if they finished all of it in one day, how many hours they plan on doing,
I
but
think they were just getting the
Yeah,
filling the
Vacuuming
potholes,
the lawns.
getting the
yeah,
gravel out of the
yeah.
lawns.
I offered him a beer.
Hopefully they decline.
Hopefully, they did, we don't want to know.
Thank you, question mark? So we'll maintain it to the best of the ability with existing grades and existing, what's the word, contours, I guess. And then, so next year, we just get in contact with you all before next year's, because that would be like a June activity. I assume we'd have to be dry enough to do it consistently.
Yes, if it's dry in June.
If it's dry, maybe July, possibly August.
They can do it. I mean, they built, east-north, that section in March with the road base, and they've done all right. They lose more days that way.
Okay, so the draining in mine, the end in mine, will you be able to address this?
I will look at the survey, and if there's something Public Works can do kind of simply, but I think what we're talking about is not doing a contract with anybody until a year from now. So there's not a whole lot, they don't have the equipment your husband used to have. I know he used to take care of it for us.
Well, he used to go up and down the road and fill in the potholes with our plow on our Jeep. He'd go up and down, up and down, up and down. And fill them up. He's no longer with us.
So we're limited by the equipment materials we have, but I can see if there's a way just to push it a little further north, away from you. But my gut tells me that's gonna be hard, because I think you need to shave it down before you can move the water over.
It's kind of like, it's, from what it was, now it's been kind of pushed up so that it's higher at my end of the road where it's a cul-de-sac, and just sort of spilling into the yard here.
Yeah, to push it further north, I think that's gonna be hard with the stuff we have.
Yeah,
So far, I don't have a problem.
Right to the middle, yeah.
I've got 2 or 3 degrees slope on
right,
the drive.
right, yeah, so,
Yeah, your house is higher.
Right.
than-
yeah. So, okay, I think we have a plan then. Any questions? Do you guys have any questions for us?
We'll be in touch. We'll go through you. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you, guys.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Who does snow removal on that road?
So a little real-time education on how budgeting works. So good, thank you.
So the second item on the agenda was the pay plan survey. So as usual each year, we do a competitive market survey, look at our neighbors, which was included in the packet, to see if our salary ranges meet those comparables, and what that looks like for salary increases if we still fall into the comparable ranges. And there were short and sweet, no need for a change this year. So the pay plan is the same, it'll just be dated differently, and the ranges were included for your review. Next year, there'll likely be some changes to those ranges as people's salaries abut the caps of the ranges. But this year, I think we're fine.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
And just to also say that the ranges are just a range. Our increases are merit-based solely. So it's not like we're looking at that range as where someone's salary is going to be, or there's a step that they're moving through. It's merit-based.
There's no, like slide to G12, G9.
Right,
or-
and the merit pool budget is typically 3% for all budgeted salaries in one, so that means somebody could be less or more depending on
Right.
the range, but the total sum is always around 3%. So,
What about other benefits, healthcare, pension contributions? How are those doing?
in
I mean, it's an expense to the village.
It is, yeah, the village, and we're part of, not unlike our insurance or some of those operations, like for general liability and property, we're in a pool with several other municipalities for health, and so that our benefit schedule is comparable to Wilmette, Lincolnshire, and all those other communities. But I think in terms of price increases that we were looking at, it wasn't that bad this year. I think we did well. I think it was single digits.
single-digit
That's good.
percentage increases for the health insurance, and that could have been actually less, but collectively, the pool and the board,
We increased our rate to tuck
increased-
away to have a bigger cushion,
Right.
because it's gonna come, right?
offset
those
the
are
fund
shared
balances
between
in
the
the
Sure,
future.
yes.
So yours goes up, the employee goes up a little bit. Single digits is good.
Yes, it was.
Because I have a question is, last year was, some people experienced up to 30%.
Yeah, no, we did not.
So you guys are single digit, do you expect that to come next year, or is that you have enough pool size to deliver that?
So there are enough lives in the pool. We have, 12 or 11 communities in the pool, so that's a lot of lives to create that base. And they're constantly looking at other ways to reduce the expenses other than to hit the employee with increased costs.
And it's
So-
pharmaceuticals. which,
Right.
you know, right,
So
that's-
you
yeah.
tweak what's covered under pharmaceuticals, or maybe a certain type of deductible related to a certain, emergency plan or whatever. There are other approaches that we've used to reduce.
Manage those costs.
To manage the costs, not necessarily pass them on to the employee or the employer.
Okay.
And then IRMA is the pool that we use for workers' comp and
GL, yeah,
risk
general liability,
risk
yeah.
management, general liability. And then some of the employees that are unionized, Public Works, have a different insurance plan that the village pays for.
I seem to remember with the police pensions back in 2008, we had to make up the difference of the losses in the market. We had to increase I think we had to,
Oh, yes. Everything old is new again. Yeah.
okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yep. Water fund,
Water fund, so,
probably our unhappiest fund.
our unhappiest fund. Basically, we looked at the capital outlay and the infrastructure improvements needed in the water fund. And those have typically been just a flat dollar amount that we look to then back into to know that, hey, we can spend this much money this year on main improvements and things that need to be done. So that progressively has increased on the capital improvement chart, and I think we're at $1 million. Is that what we're budgeting? Without looking at it, sorry. Those are some of the key drivers in what the rate increases need to be so that we can support the capital going out in the future. So if you go to the next slide. Currently, revenue is projected to really remain flat. There's been slight increases with interest unless we change the rate. So the rate increases that we looked at were a 5% rate increase for both years in the fiscal year plan, so 27 and 28. And then included in the packet were charts that provided a look at what the fund would look like if we didn't do anything after that 2-year period, which it's not on the slides, but would obviously, the fund balance would tank. It's a technical term. And then if we do the 5-year plus 3% ongoing thereafter, if you want to switch to the slide there, you can see the green is the capital, the yellow is, wish I could see better, sale of services.
Yep. Be
And,
color, I'll tell you.
yep, go ahead. Blue is the current
Those
debt
grants.
service. So you see the light blue, current debt service has fallen off. And if we keep the 5% and do 3% every year thereafter at the current rate of investment in capital, assuming no change to the 1 million, which isn't necessarily true. As you mentioned, there's inflationary costs and things that increase. But from today's perspective, that's where we would land. And we do this every year. That could change. And we're also still waiting on water rate study that would look at more of specific capital needs that hopefully would plot out more like a street and road program for the water side, where we actually look at.
Absolute most
Right.
surgical in doing our work as we can be.
Right, so we actually look at what streets and roads need the repair work instead of just
With the age of
budgeting
the
it out.
infrastructure, with the, the type of hydrants that are there, knowing that we have to install some, there'll be kind of like, I would call it like a stopgap measure of putting in some valves in certain subdivisions, because we know we won't be able to replace at the rate we would want to do. And so, and we're anticipating more breaks. It's, from a strategy, it's less expensive to break fix rather than replace. And I think, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's really been two factors that have influenced that I would call the unhappy nature of the fund. It's not bad, but it's in terms of activities, it's daunting in that the cost per linear foot for infrastructure, we were talking about, because we were digging in the files, and what was it, and for the water replacement, or to build new.
$350 a foot.
And we were looking back in the files in 2003, it was $40 a linear foot. So that's one thing, that the cost of the infrastructure is exploding. And I think there was a period of time when we thought we would have more headspace in our rate structure to recapture capital from, we buy water in bulk from CLC Jawa. We step on it to support our system and our utilities. We thought we would have more airspace there, and they have changed their protocol and what they're doing in terms of, they have their own infrastructure issues they're dealing with. So that gap in our, so we couldn't necessarily say, oh, we're gonna double the price to our residents per se. So we're dealing with that universe of, we thought we'd have more headspace to plan for capital.
So we've got an initial year above typical CPI, and then going forward, it's closer to what would be a typical CPI.
Well, I think we're doing this other study, we're gonna get more information probably this summer from Baxter and Women. That's gonna be, I think it's going to be more, you guys should be investing more surgically in certain things, and we know that, and we want, and I think it'll have probably a steady increases in our water rate structure, and potentially adopting a different structure to maybe reflect other policy objectives, such as a system that's it's multi-tiered to encourage conservation, which ironically generates a lot of revenue because there are certain users that need water regardless of where they fall in terms of consumption. And also users that have, very expansive gardens or pools, and this is what they want. So, so there's different structures and different tactics that they'll give us some advice on, but it's really, I think it's going to be a good study to reveal that what we need to be doing with regards to future investment in our system.
Refresh my memory, did back when I was on the board, did we separate out irrigation costs from residential potable water? Did we discuss it?
We were talking about the time and maybe doing a tiered, because that's been floating around. It's been commonly done in the area, and I think when I first came to the village, we had done it in Bannockburn. I was trying to peddle it here. It's a good way to do it.
Yeah, so I know that the sustainability committee meeting, or sustainability committee would be interested and would be keen on charging a different rate for irrigation.
Or just a conservation, like you're in this tier of users, this volume, this is how much
Right.
water you use, you pay this rate. If you're in the bigger tier, you pay more.
Right.
Yeah.
Consumption based.
I see. Yeah.
And we kind of did take a peek at that consumption-based, what that would look like right now. And unfortunately, we don't have that much of a breakdown between commercial and residential. It's fairly even. So, and oddly, the commercial users did not turn out to be those high users. So we did take a look, so it's in the works, just not for this year.
It looked like in the packet of materials that there were two charts, and we're now presenting the one that makes the most sense, the more sense between the two, right? And when that's another year of 5% and then 3% thereafter, which maintains kind of a steady fund as opposed to spinning it all the way down, which is what the other chart looked like, right? So, okay, yes, this makes sense. And part of the cost that we're talking about, is that lead pipe replacement, or what?
So the lead pipe replacement is part of the budget. However, those are being paid with transfers from the general fund tied to the ARPA money that we have earmarked for those. So ARPA is about 740,000. So that'll take us through maybe 3 years of it, and then the fund will absorb the other 2 or so years that we, are slating about 200,000 a year.
Yeah, 2/3 to 3/4 of it
Right.
will be covered by those
By
ARPA
the
funds.
ARPA money.
We were earmarked for that
So
work.
right now, it's actually booked by transfer, so it's not necessarily part of what would cause a decline in the fund balance.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Okay. The Stormwater Utility Fund. So here's where the storm trunk project sits, the capital project related to all the work that's being done in the bulk of the dollars that we're spending currently on repairs and infrastructure improvements. The biggest part of this budget is that, so approximately revenue is about $850,000 a year. And that rate will remain frozen till 2028 based on what the board promised when the rate was established. And at that point, that would be a discussion.
Can I ask, is that fiscal year 2028, which actually begins May 1st of 2027? Or is that?
Yes.
It is, okay.
Yes.
Which is strangely not that long from now.
Far away.
So tied to that revenue stream is the upcoming intention to bond the proceeds to move forward with the capital project.
Which is the middle leg of the deep tunnel. Now, I think you saw in the communications that we've been in contact with Congressman Schneider's office, and that we made the first cut up to 10 million, and we've been here before. So we twice. And so we're not counting any chickens, but at least we're in the mix, so.
But this is the first time we also had a letter of support from the military base.
No, we had it last time too.
We did.
We did.
I will continue being depressed on myself.
Yeah. There's no promises, but I mean, I think at the end of the day, if the village did get federal dollars to do this, we'd start looking to spend the same money and the straws, like start picking out, prioritizing the straws to start feeding into the system.
That's what you see basically on the revenue side. If you look at the packet that was included, the $10 million in bonds proceeds, and there's still a capital contribution that's being swept from the general fund, $500,000 a year, leads us to a net position in that fund of approximately 1.5 million at the end of '28. So even with potential bond there's still, my point is there's still a balance in that fund once we get to the end of '28 to move forward with some of the things that, Drew's talking about. Because the general fund has historically put money into this fund for those straws, not just, the big bond would take care of the bulk of the project, but we'd be working on other costs associated with the straws. So we kind of talked through this already. So just in summary, just some key takeaways. Is continuing to look at long-term goals and priorities in all of the capital improvement projects and goals that we have. Looking at some significant infrastructure investments in water, stormwater, and capital projects that will bring down the general fund balance to about 51%, which is what we had discussed at being per the policy.
And by what date will the 51% be reached?
Assuming that all projects run through and where we've been, it would be the end of '28.
Fiscal?
The end of this 2-year period. I don't think it's on here, Joe. Maybe it's just the capital improvement. The general fund balance was in the last meeting.
I'll have it, stand by.
But it took us down to 51% at, FY '28.
And thereafter, I remember seeing charts that dip below then after 2028, dip below that 50% number. Is that still what we're expecting to happen?
So last year when I presented those charts, they were lower. We were like in the 40 percentile
Yeah.
range for '28, but sales tax revenues have come back differently. Although we've experienced some decline in it, from month to month comparing to prior months, we're still way ahead of where we anticipated
I
being.
see.
So there've been changes to revenue streams that have changed that, and also some expenditures that we didn't, fully expend
I see.
related to
Thanks.
the project, so.
The 850,000 is from the rate structure, from the
Yes,
levy,
that's strictly
stormwater.
revenue from the rate, from the fees,
There
to
was,
pay the bond payment
that reminds me, there was
That's
something,
by the taxpayers, right?
by the water consumers.
Water consumers, yes, thank you.
there was data about that, yeah, it's on the last page of the packet, data about the actual receipts. And I think we talked about this once before, but the receipts have gone down over the course of the last 4 years or 3 years, right? So actual for fiscal year 23, 24, 844, the following year, 781, and
Right.
so on. I think we talked about that, but remind me, because we're not quite getting the 850, right?
So it's dependent on, there've been some people that have gotten exemptions. There are some users that haven't paid. I don't want to call them out, but yeah.
Yeah.
And what else? Anything else that you can think of that would cause a decline in what was originally estimated? Who have not applied yet, which would make it decline even more, but I think that's really the bulk of it.
Does that cause any problem to the budget projections that we have if we're really at more like 750 instead of 850 each year? Maybe 770, 780, 780.
Well, I mean, we've left extra in the fund balance, as you can, if you see it, look at the bottom, the net position. Certainly captures wherever we're at, and it's also dependent on the rates that we get. I don't know what the bond
Right,
structure is
interest
gonna look
rates
like.
are gonna dictate.
You know, it could be less, could be more, we could take out a little less, you know, we can create the number that we're paying, basically.
I see. Okay.
And we also control to the, you know, the scale of the project, like what's the scope,
Right,
how
that
far
too.
we go, and,
But I think we've heard from our constituents that the interest is in doing it sooner than later, right?
Right.
So what I'm trying to understand is if
if 2008 rolls around, you make a change in the fee.
2028, 2008 might roll around again, but
Sorry, 2028.
it might.
You never know.
You never know.
I hope 2008 doesn't come.
Yeah, all right.
Economic basis,
Right, right.
been there, done that.
2028 rolls around and
The
we,
village has more flexibility.
right.
Right, because I think, you know, we've got this main infrastructure project, the main pipe, and then we've got all these straws into the communities that we haven't figured out funding for yet. And I think that, you know, this is a major benefit, but at some point, the communities are going to have to say, okay, we did this, but it hasn't reached the benefit hasn't reached my area yet. And then we have to talk about rates and structures and funding for that, and I think various communities will continue to be interested in funding and extending that ability to take water out of their areas.
It feels like with 2028 being
Close.
close, now 15 months away, really, for beginning of fiscal year 2028, not even 14 months, that we probably don't need to discuss doing anything other than what we vowed to do at the beginning of this. But at some point, we need to think about community engagement about how quickly we want to move forward and what that means for these rates, right? And we don't want to wait until fiscal year 2028 is upon us before we start having those discussions. We could leave it, even if we do maintain it as stated through fiscal year 2028, the beginning of fiscal year 2028. What will we be proposing to the public, and how do we get them the knowledge that they need to understand what the choices are, the trade-offs? If we do raise this, are we able to go somewhat more quickly? How quickly do we get to the community, the rest of the straws? Quantifying that, which of course is going to be difficult, but I think in advance of a decision on this rate, we do need to be thinking about how to communicate with the community, why it might go up, or what keeping it steady would mean for the speed with which we could get the straws in. That kind of community education is going to be important.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I think the village has done that in the past through direct mailings and holding workshops. And it's not the fastest way to do things,
Yeah,
but that's
I-
probably, that the village has been very cautious in taking baby steps toward this for years. And so I think you're right. It wouldn't hurt to start talking about it sooner rather than later. And I think there could be even some scenarios, like, let's say interest rates came down dramatically and people
Right.
looking at this, the scenario would make sense to go hard, go fast.
Right.
Right.
I worry about the community in that, you know, we have cut the ribbon of the final project, right? The pipe's done, everything's tested, it's working, and there's celebrations and fireworks. And then we have a flood, we have a heavy rain, and people around town go,
What
"Hey,
happened?"
it's not,
Yeah.
it's not helping my area."
Viaduct's okay or better,
Yeah,
whatnot.
yeah, so I think that that's just more communication, discussion, education, about what the amazing thing we've done, but that it's still, there's more to do.
Yeah. I mean, there's other communication strategies to employ. You can do polling, you can do other things to, we can investigate that more thoroughly, but there's companies that's what they do.
Right, and I think it comes down to, how we're gonna fund it, as a town.
Yeah.
And what we've done and what still needs to be done and how we'll fund it, so.
And we now have, 4 years of data behind us, so we know that 850 turns into 750, for example. So we'll be able to go into it with a little bit more clarity about what we should expect.
We had workshops downstairs, not here, and the feedback we got was, how can you go fast?
Yeah,
So
right.
to your point, this is not being hesitant, going for more. This is very much of, well, how much faster, how much better can we do now?
Yeah.
And I mean, the project is a 50 million project. The first phase is $22 million, is what we're doing. That 10, if ever it were to come, let's hope on that, would fund for the pipes, for the straws, as Drew says. But at the end of the day, that gives us to 32 over 50, and we still have another 20 million to find after that. And what we haven't said here is we also have IDOT, who is on the hook for 7 or 7.5 or somewhere there, and we still do not have that.
Right.
Although they've committed verbally, they will do it, the work in the right of way. They've said that, they've made that clear. We trying to get a meeting with them. We thought we had one, was it 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And they moved it, or our senator moved it, but meet with the Secretary of Transportation to nail this down. We've even talked about the idea of them advance funding other legs, different ways to do things. But I was gonna bring up, this is the conversation of, it's the village's goal and to fund these activities through the utility was made the most rational approach in that it was just built on impervious surface and the calculations and all that resonated well with the community. As Bettina said earlier, we're transferring monies from the general fund into this fund, many other funds, and so that the amount of revenue sources is a much bigger umbrella.
Right.
And I know this board has talked about from time to time reestablishing the grocery tax. I mean, that's something that's,
To be funneled there.
and it's, the amount is,
It's about 250, 300,000 a year.
so to your point earlier, there's $1 million debt service. I mean, there's different ways to cover that debt for reoccurring. I was gonna bring up, talking about the auto tax, the sales tax. If you look at, so 33% of the village's general fund is made up of sales tax. 2/3 of that is auto-related.
Yes.
The auto industry is a funny industry. And like we saw the numbers go down in '08 when the chips were not available, I'm sorry, not '08, that's the COVID period. But we saw that go down when people had less money to spend,
Right.
But there's been a lot of shifts in our local market, and we're hopeful that everybody sticks around who generates auto tax, but there are no guarantees. And there's a lot of new owners who don't have the relationships in the community over the years, so we'll see where all that goes. We're hopeful that they find Lake Bluff as lovely as everybody else does. So TBD on that, but.
Okay.
So the purpose of this, we kind of went over a lot of the same projects, a lot of the same information. I think there was a handful of questions at the last meeting dealing with when the village does the improvements on the gazebo, that we incorporate lightning arresting architecture, and so that we'll work through the consultant to make sure that's done. There was the idea of revisiting the lighting of the Sheridan Road pathway in that commuter walking area and wrapping around from West Center up to the middle school. We're talking to vendors, getting an updated number, but the timing of that it could be put back into the multi-year capital plan from our perspective. We think the timing, that if we did that, we'd want to have the deep tunnel project complete before you went in that area, because that general vicinity there, as it wraps around and connects with, it's gonna be disturbed by construction, and so we would want to wait to do that. So, we're revisiting that. And then, I think those were the big ones that came up at the last meeting. But so, I don't know if there's any other changes you guys want to talk about, but I think from staff's perspective, this is the budget based off the direction and the comments that we would ask you all, as members of the Finance Committee, to recommend to the full board, and that we would present to the community as the draft recommended budget.
Do you need a motion?
Yes.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. Okay. What's number 5? We have a few minutes, I guess, between meetings.
Yep.
No other discussion? We'll have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And we're adjourned.